Yesterday, Quebec legalized, they voted to legalize euthanasia in Quebec. Now, I hope those Quebecois bloodletters are happy with what they got. Now, Quebec's a big shot. And that's what they think of themselves, are big shots. They always wanted to do something that they couldn't separate from the rest of Canada. And let's get euthanasia passed, and the whole world's going to look up to us someday. How great Quebec is. One thing I will say is I do appreciate the doctors' organizations that got together. They were absolutely opposed to legalizing euthanasia in this country. I'm really sick to the gut of these organizations of right to die societies. They get to go on around the world doing these little campaigns and using scare tactics to attract attention to their occupation, to kill off people they don't think should be alive. And they maintain this image of their customers, the people who want to terminate their lives early, that they become happy customers. In this country, and in Quebec, especially Quebec, Quebec was the place in Canada that had the Senate Committee on dying without dignity. It was supposed to be a 6-week session of going around the province of Quebec, hearing from Quebecers what they wanted in terms of end of life or euthanasia. I think there were 33 meetings, and instead of being all wrapped up in 6 weeks, they didn't like the outcome, so they just kept on, keeping on, and pushing on to get more and more people to adopt the position of wanting to legalize euthanasia or assisted suicide. And after it was all over, they did their little report, and it was a lot different than the report that the federal government, the committee of members of parliament and doctors and other stakeholders and getting a good universal palliative care system going across the country for the benefit of all Canadians, regardless of whether they're in any province or Northern Territory. A good system to guarantee equality of resources as much as possible so that Canadians would not have to go through unnecessary suffering in the end stages of their life or at any stage of their life while they're alive and living. So the Quebec government, the Quebec Senate Committee, made their report, and they withheld. They would not include most of the presentations which are given by the healthcare professionals in Quebec and palliative care specialists and nurses who were all opposed to legalizing euthanasia in Quebec. And these dirtbags across the country, the Royal Society of Canada had a so-called expert panel. They went trotting across the world to Europe and Belgium and Holland and Netherlands, and the Senate Committee, Quebecois people were there, I guess, part of the big shot oil tourist trip to the death cult of Europe. And they come back here and they have this little chubby chicken, Wanda Morris from Saskatchewan, went across this country rejecting all the statistics which has been presented at the track record of Belgium, Oregon, and all their so-called safeguards. They love the Babylon that all those areas where euthanasia, assisted suicide are legal, that the safeguards work. Oh, there's no slippery slope, they say. And now they're on a roll now in Quebec. Woohoo! Whoopie-ding! We got euthanasia legalized in Quebec now. Woohoo! The world's going to look up to us finally. Yes, the world's going to see how great Quebec is for our language and culture and our ignorance, our prejudice, and the hate for some people we just don't think should be alive and living. Now, it's like all the places that they have their laws passed. They don't just go around killing people off like that. They just take advantage of, they get their happy customers. They get what they wanted, and they think when they drop dead and are in their grave that everything's hunky-dory. Most of them are atheists, if not all of them are atheists. They just think they go to sleep and there's nothing else. Woohoo! But I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's absolutely no proof at all that any of those people who through the years, 20, 30 years, have opted for euthanasia, assisted suicide, or their own suicide, like the couple who jumped off the penthouse floor the other night, the 2 days ago, the morning, after the CBC did a program in the National about a former Supreme Court judge who had ALS, and he wanted to end his life early, and he just thought that at this stage of his life he ought to make it known that the government should make a decision. In other words, they should legalize it. Well, you know, he like anybody else, and he knew it when he said it. So why this guy get on camera to pretend he didn't know that it's always been legal for people to terminate any medical treatment they don't want, and they can terminate food and fluids anytime they want, and just when they become distressed, they can receive palliative care to relieve any discomfort until they're dead, which is what they want to do. It's always been legal, and he knew it. So obviously this guy's in his grave now, and but he had an agenda, and I'm pretty sure he got pretty well treated by the high priests of the duty to die cult to help push it over the edge. And you people out there who maybe see stuff and read stuff about euthanasia, and you just sit there and think, oh well, it doesn't have anything to do with me. I don't need to worry about that stuff, you know, I'm in great shape. And but I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people laying in hospitals. They didn't expect to wind up in a hospital. And the third leading cause of death in the United States hospitals, I don't know what it is in Canada's, but there is statistics and data in U.S. hospitals. The third leading cause of death the United States has is hospital errors. So choke that one down. Now, to compound situations like that, if you have legalized euthanasia, that makes acute care floors in ICUs a pretty dangerous, unsafe place to be for people who just want to recover and get on with their life. Now, I really do appreciate the doctor who took my case 20 years ago this year in a hospital in Hull, Quebec. I was pretty sure I was dying of cancer, but I was just hemorrhaging from protein deficiency, trying to be a vegetarian. And I appreciate what the guy did. That the day before I checked out, he came to see me. We had a chit chat. He told me, if you came in here tomorrow and you were in the same condition to where the last time you came in, I'd do the whole thing all over again. Oh, wow. That was during the time of Robert Latimer and his big heroics, and Sue Rodriguez and her big poor crybaby episodes. And then you have Pussy Boy, Savannah Robinson up there wanting to be the champion of legalizing euthanasia, assisted suicide. That's the one thing is I've been really paying attention to a lot through the years, is one of the biggest populations of people in this country who have really been pushing support for legalizing euthanasia and assisted suicide is the gay population. It was only during the 80s and 90s when those fags used to have to hide in their closets. They didn't dare come out in public and flaunt their faggotry in our faces and have gay parades down the street. But during the 90s, I read stuff and I kind of realized, hey, they're going to hit this new millennium where the idea that they're going to normalize, and they're going to normalize the gay culture. That's exactly what they've done. And these people who were a threatened minority are one of the chief supporters and promoters of legalizing euthanasia and assisted suicide. And it's sick. They expected everybody to be tolerant of them and their gender bullshit. Now, I've got no contempt for real homosexuals and lesbians who were born with hormones, same-sex hormones. But most of the gay population are gay by choice. They can deny it all they want. They can do what the fuck they want. It is a fact. And it'd be little sucky-wucky pussy boys and girls ever really understood the way things were and gays were treated in the 80s and 90s, they might not be so bold to flaunt their little gay parades. Yeah, these people are some of the biggest interests and pushers of legalizing euthanasia. And it does affect, especially people, baby boomer, disabled people who are born with birth defects. And I've been noticing over the last 10 years that there's been a fair number of cases where a disabled person, if they're over a certain age, and they wind up having an emergency situation in a hospital, that there is somebody who usually involved in the care team who finds a way to have a convenient mistake. Now, in Montreal, a person I've been involved with as a friend and as a peer in disability rights, just up and died, or she went to hospital with something. I don't know whether that's what they did to her or not, but her friend, she a few years before that, her best friend, a man who was a little bit older than us, went to the hospital, and she contacted me because after he died, and she told me that there was no need for him to die like that. He had pneumonia. He went to the hospital. He just needed some treatment, and he would have been okay. But something happened in there, and the next thing you know, he's dead. And she was totally traumatized. The euthanasia cycle is embedded in all the hospitals. I don't have anything against real decent doctors, and I do say that most of the doctors are really good people. But I do hope that medical colleges will really put on the brakes of people entering medical college they were pro-euthanasia. People can terminate their treatments, they can terminate their food and water, and they can die if they want. It's always been legal. These scumbums, and they have the audacity to call themselves right to die societies. And it's all about choice. And we all know, well, a few of us know, quite a few of us know, 80% of the executions in Flanders, Belgium, are against consent. Now, 50% of the executions aren't even reported. They're not considered human beings. Pretty good, huh? And these are the bloody social parasites that the Quebec government looks up to and adores. And the Royal Society of Canada. They're expert panel. Bioethics, big shots. I went to the Netherlands, and Belgium, and Switzerland. And they went to Dignitas. And the stories are so great. Hey, everybody, Canadians, Quebecers, there's nothing wrong with the safeguards. Enjoy your life. We're there to finish you off anytime a convenient accident can happen. That's how they'll do it. That's how a lot of things go on. And I've experienced a couple of rotten situations 5 years ago. 5 years ago. In 2 ICUs. I won't get into the details. I've already gone over the details. And I've written about it 30 years. So I'm not just manufacturing some theory of what could happen. I know what happens. Now, if there's any way to overturn this Bill 52, I've got pretty good ideas how to put an end to Bill 52 and its authors and its supporters. But I guess most people wouldn't want to go there. My idea, when I relearned the history of disability rights, and how to this day we're not even on the map as equal human beings. It looks kind of good because people don't notice it a lot, because the younger generation of disabled people, a lot of them have jobs and are in university and college, stuff like that. It all looks good. Now just wait till they start having problems, medical problems. Just wait till they get a little older. Now these worthless barbarians have got their law passed. I've got no sympathy at all for these people. Even that couple the other night, the other morning, the day after the National, did that show on euthanasia, just the day before Bill 52 was being voted on. This couple jumped. What heroes? Big shot heroes. Oh, whose fault was it? Those poor people jumped from the building. Oh, it must be those religious laws. There was a wackos. They spent years blaming the Canadian Criminal Code for being a religious law. For all these people when they get diagnosed with something, there are people who can adjust to their new circumstances. And I'm sure as hell I had to adjust to my new circumstances at each stage of my own decline. Most people don't see it. You know, when you wind up helping to move into a long-term place. I had an apartment for a few years. Before that, I always had to live with somebody. I was able to work with an organization for 20 years in different countries. And we lived communally, so I always had people I was real buddy with, and they helped me do the things I needed to do. And I was able to work and stuff like that. But when I landed in a situation where I have respiratory arrest, and now, 20 years later, my pretty much oxygen dependent all the time. I don't mind adjusting to my decline. Contrary to what the pro-euthanasia people hit me on comments forums, comments sections of websites and newspapers. No, I'm not scared to death. I've nearly died 3 times. And dying is a part of our life. And what really gets me and why I am totally opposed to laws and would like to topple every fucking law that they got passed. For one thing, not a single one of their laws was passed in an honest fashion. It wasn't. But people understand the entire contents of each of their kill bills anywhere in the world, most people would reject it. But they lie. Their campaigns are typical commercials and soap operas and talk shows, and they're you know, I was just across Canada microphone presentations a couple of years ago, and then even this year, I think, but they deny everything. They deny the reports that say 80% of the executions in Belgium now is against consent. In fact, 50% of the people are not even reported that they were murdered. Only 20% of the people are happy customers who wanted it. That means the rest of us are held hostage. But a selfish, sickening 20%, they refuse to accept the changing status in their lives, in their medical situations. The right to die societies, I do not think, should be allowed to operate anymore, anywhere in the world. I think they should be dismantled, and I do think they should face war crime trials. Euthanasia originated with Operation T4. And Operation T4 began in 1939, 2 years before Hitler ever went after Jews, gays, and political dissidents. 2 years. And when the Americans rolled in to put an end to everything, disabled Germans were still being exterminated. After the Jews were rescued, the gays were rescued, political dissidents were rescued, but not disabled Germans. And now in the last 20 years, they've been reviving this Operation T4 and dressing it all up. Nice little medical terms. Oh, it's only for the suffering. Oh, it's only for the terminally ill. Oh, the intolerable pain and suffering. And I've been reading quite a few comments by people, and even in some of these documentaries, I've been paying attention to some of the moaning and groaning. Well, you think it's taking a toll out of the poor family member who's dying. Look what it's doing to all of us around him, all the supporters. Oh, we suffer so much. Yeah, right. That's the bottom line, assholes. The bottom line is you don't like to look at us. You don't like the fact that we breathe the same air. And so you want to get rid of us. And a lot of elder abuse is being executed because of all this euthanasia stuff. Oregon. And cancer patients. Cancer patients are even being denied cancer treatments because they can't prove they'll be alive in another 5 years if they get their treatment. And Quebec is starting to do the same thing. Copycat Oregon. Oh, they're doing it there, so we're going to do it here. We're the Quebecois. And one thing I will say, when you're all in your graves, you might not just go to sleep. And if you don't just get to go to sleep, I can tell you something. You have got everybody you put to the grave to face when you're dead. So you just eat that up, boys and girls, great cult members of the culture of death. Good night. Quebec was the place in Canada that had the Senate Committee on Dying Without Dignity. It was supposed to be a 6-week session of going around the province of Quebec, hearing from Quebecers what they wanted in terms of end of life or euthanasia. I think there were 33 meetings, and instead of being all wrapped up in 6 weeks, they didn't like the outcome, so they just kept on, keeping on, and pushing on to get more and more people to adopt the position of wanting to legalize euthanasia or assisted suicide. And after it was all over, they did their little report. Yesterday, Quebec legalized, they voted to legalize euthanasia in Quebec. Now, I hope those Quebecois bloodletters are happy with what they got. Now, Quebec's a big shot. And that what they think of themselves are big shots. They always wanted to do something that they couldn't separate from the rest of Canada. And let's get euthanasia passed, and the whole world's going to look up to us someday. How great Quebec is. One thing I will say is I do appreciate the doctors' organizations that got together. They were absolutely opposed to legalizing euthanasia in this country. Time really made their report, and they withheld. They would not include most of the presentations which are given by the healthcare professionals in Quebec and palliative care specialists and nurses. They were all opposed to legalizing euthanasia in Quebec. And these dirtbags across the country, the Royal Society of Canada had a so-called expert panel. They went trotting across the world to Europe and Belgium and Holland and Netherlands, and the Senate Committee Quebecois people were there, I guess, part. And it was a lot different than the report that the federal government, the committee of members of parliament and doctors and other stakeholders in, getting a good universal palliative care system going across the country for the benefit of all Canadians, regardless of whether they're in any province or Northern Territory. A good system to guarantee equality of resources as much as possible, so that Canadians would not have to go through unnecessary suffering in the end stages of their life, or at any stage of their life while they're alive and living. So the Quebec government, the Quebec Senate Committee, sick to the gut of these organizations of right to die societies. They get to go on around the world doing these little campaigns and using scare tactics to attract attention to their occupation, to kill off people they don't think should be alive. And they maintain this image of their customers, the people who want to terminate their lives early, that they become happy customers. in this country and in Quebec, especially Quebec.